Hello and welcome. As your body sinks deeper into comfort and your mind begins to quiet, I invite you to join me on a journey into something we've all experienced. Tonight, as you drift into sleep, we're going to explore those New Year's resolutions we make with such hope and determination, only to find them fading away by February. Think back to last December. The anticipation of a fresh start. The promise you made to yourself. Perhaps it was to exercise more, spend less time on your phone, or finally learn that skill you've been putting off. The conviction you felt was real, wasn't it? Yet somehow, like morning dew under a rising sun, that resolution slowly evaporated. Have you ever wondered why about 90% of New Year's resolutions fail? It's a staggering number that reveals something profound about human nature. Why, despite our genuine intentions and initial motivation, do we find ourselves making the same promises year after year, sometimes for decades? Tonight's journey isn't about making you feel bad about past failures. Not at all. It's about understanding the hidden patterns in our minds that create this cycle. It's about discovering a gentler, more effective approach to meaningful change, one that works with your brain's natural tendencies rather than fighting against them. As your breathing deepens and your thoughts begin to slow, allow yourself to approach this topic with curiosity rather than judgment. What might happen if, instead of forcing change through willpower alone, we learned to navigate the subtle currents of our own psychology? Let your mind drift with me now, as we explore why resolutions fail and how we might finally break free from this cycle, creating lasting change that feels less like a battle and more like coming home to yourself. Whether you're listening to this in January with fresh resolutions in mind, or in July wondering why your goals have drifted away, the insights we'll explore together can transform how you approach personal change. As we prepare to delve deeper into the intricacies of New Year's resolutions and the reasons behind their frequent failure, let's take a moment to reflect on the journey ahead. Each topic we explore will not only illuminate the challenges we face, but will also provide you with practical insights and strategies to foster lasting change. So, as you relax further into this experience, allow your mind to remain open and curious, ready to embrace new perspectives that can transform your approach to resolutions and personal growth. Part 1. The Psychology of Resolutions. As your body continues to relax deeper into comfort, let's explore the fascinating psychology behind our resolutions and why they so often disappear by February. Think back to last December 31st. Perhaps you were holding a glass of champagne, surrounded by friends or family when you declared, "This year, I'm finally going to get in shape." In that moment, your mind likely conjured a vivid image. You, 6 months later, confidently running through the park or admiring your transformed reflection. You could almost feel the satisfaction, the pride, the accomplishment. This powerful visualization isn't just daydreaming. Neuroscientists have discovered that when we imagine future success, our brain releases dopamine, the same feel-good chemical released when we actually achieve something. In essence, just making the resolution gives us a neurochemical reward before we've taken a single action. Take James, for example. Last New Year's Eve, he resolved to learn Spanish, envisioning himself chatting confidently with locals during his planned vacation to Barcelona. The moment he made this resolution, his brain flooded with pleasurable neurotransmitters. He felt accomplished simply by setting the intention. James downloaded a language app and used it enthusiastically for the first week. But by mid-January, he found himself skipping days. By February, the app sat untouched on his phone, a digital reminder of another abandoned resolution. What happened to James isn't unusual. Research from the University of Scranton reveals that while 45% of Americans regularly make New Year's resolutions, only 8% actually achieve them. The question isn't whether resolutions fail, it's why they fail so predictably. Part of the answer lies in how our brains process novelty versus routine. When James first started learning Spanish, his brain perceived it as new and exciting. Each little achievement, learning to count to 10, mastering basic greetings, triggered small dopamine releases. But our brains are wired to conserve energy. Novel experiences require more neural resources than familiar routines. As the novelty wore off, James' brain began to resist the extra effort, subtly steering him toward the comfortable path of least resistance, his established evening routine of watching TV instead of studying Spanish. Or consider Lisa, who resolved to cut out sugar completely. For the first 10 days, her willpower held strong. But then came her daughter's birthday party, with a beautiful chocolate cake at the center of the celebration. In that moment, Lisa faced not just a craving, but a complex emotional situation involving family tradition, celebration, and connection. When Lisa eventually had a slice of cake, she didn't just experience it as a minor deviation from her plan. Her brain, governed by what psychologists call all-or-nothing thinking, registered it as complete failure. "I've already ruined my resolution," she thought, "so I might as well have another slice." This one moment of perceived failure triggered what researchers call the what the hell effect, where a small slip leads to complete abandonment of the goal. Lisa's experience illustrates another psychological principle that undermines resolutions: our tendency to create rules that are too rigid and absolute. Never eat sugar leaves no room for the nuance and flexibility that real life demands. Understanding these psychological mechanisms doesn't mean we're doomed to failure. Quite the opposite. By recognizing how our minds actually work, not how we wish they worked, we can design approaches to change that work with our psychology instead of against it. Consider Emma, who also wanted to learn a language last year. Instead of making a sweeping resolution, she committed to just 5 minutes of practice each morning while drinking her coffee, an activity she already did daily. By attaching her new habit to an existing one, what psychologists call habit stacking, and by making the initial commitment ridiculously small, she bypassed her brain's resistance to energy-intensive change. A year later, Emma isn't fluent, but she can carry on basic conversations in her target language, far more progress than James made with his abandoned resolution. As you drift deeper into relaxation, I invite you to reflect with kindness on your past resolutions. The pattern of initial enthusiasm followed by abandonment isn't a character flaw. It's simply what happens when we set goals without accounting for how our minds actually function. In our next section, we'll explore the surprising truth about willpower and why relying on this limited resource might be setting us up for disappointment from the start. But for now, just let these insights settle in, perhaps noticing a sense of relief as you recognize that past resolution failures weren't personal failings, but predictable outcomes of working against your brain's natural tendencies. Part 2. The Willpower Myth. As you sink deeper into comfortable relaxation, let's explore one of the most persistent and damaging myths about personal change: the idea that success or failure is simply a matter of willpower. If only I had more willpower, you've probably thought at some point, watching another resolution slip away. If I were just stronger, more disciplined, I would succeed. This belief is so deeply ingrained in our culture that we rarely question it. But what if I told you that relying on willpower is like trying to cross the ocean in a rowboat, possible in theory, but practically destined for failure? Let me introduce you to Dr. Roy Baumeister, a psychologist who conducted a fascinating experiment at Case Western Reserve University. Participants were brought into a room filled with the aroma of freshly baked chocolate cookies. On the table sat 2 bowls, one with the tempting cookies, another with radishes. Some participants were told they could eat the cookies, while others were instructed to only eat the radishes, forcing them to resist the cookies. Afterward, all participants were given unsolvable puzzles to work on. How long do you think each group persisted before giving up? The cookie eaters worked on the puzzles for an average of 19 minutes. But the radish eaters, those who had to exercise willpower by resisting the cookies, gave up after just 8 minutes. This experiment revealed something profound. Willpower is a limited resource that depletes with use. Psychologists call this ego depletion. Each decision that requires self-control draws from the same mental reserve. By the end of a day filled with resisting temptations and making decisions, that reserve is often completely drained. Think about David, who resolved to exercise every evening after work. For the first week, despite feeling tired, he dragged himself to the gym. But his workday was already filled with demanding decisions, difficult conversations, and the constant effort of staying focused during long meetings. By the time he got home, his willpower reserve was nearly empty. One particularly exhausting Tuesday, he told himself, "I'll just skip today and go tomorrow instead." But tomorrow brought similar challenges, and the pattern repeated. This depletion affects us all, even in unexpected ways. Research shows that judges are more likely to grant parole to prisoners whose cases are heard in the morning or right after the judge's lunch break, when their mental energy is refreshed. As the hours wear on, the likelihood of a favorable ruling drops dramatically as decision fatigue sets in. Consider Sarah, a busy mother who resolved to avoid processed foods. She maintained perfect adherence to her plan during the structured hours of her workday. But after picking up the kids, helping with homework, preparing dinner, and handling the evening routine, her willpower reserve was depleted. At 9 p.m., exhausted on the couch, the call of the ice cream in the freezer became irresistible. This wasn't a character failure. It was the predictable result of willpower depletion. Beyond depletion, willpower has another critical limitation. It's largely ineffective against our most persistent habits. When we're stressed, tired, or emotionally vulnerable, our brains automatically default to established neural pathways, the mental equivalent of well-worn trails through a forest. These pathways were created through repetition, often over years or decades. Willpower alone is rarely strong enough to create new neural trails when the old ones are so deeply carved. Michael, an attorney with a high-pressure job, found this out when he resolved to stop checking his phone first thing in the morning. Despite genuinely wanting to begin his days more mindfully, he found himself reaching for his phone upon waking, often before he was even fully conscious. His nighttime resolution was no match for the automatic behavior triggered by morning grogginess. Understanding willpower's limitations isn't about surrendering to our habits or making excuses. It's about being realistic about the tools we're using for change. Relying primarily on willpower is like trying to cut down a forest with a pocket knife. Possible with superhuman effort, but why make it so hard when better tools exist? The most successful changes don't require constant willpower. Instead, they're designed to work around these limitations. When Tom wanted to reduce his social media use, rather than relying on moment-by-moment willpower to resist checking his apps, he simply removed them from his phone and installed website blockers on his computer. This environmental change required willpower once, but then continued working automatically, protecting him even when his willpower was depleted. As you continue drifting peacefully towards sleep, I invite you to consider what beliefs about willpower you might be able to release. Perhaps there's something freeing in recognizing that your past resolution failures weren't character flaws, but simply the result of using an insufficient tool for a complex job. In our next section, we'll explore something even more fundamental than willpower: how our deeply held identity and self-perception shape our behavior in ways that can either sabotage or support lasting change. But for now, just allow yourself to breathe deeply, noting how this new perspective on willpower might be easing some of the pressure you've placed on yourself over the years. Part 3. The Identity Factor. As you settle deeper into relaxation, Let's explore a fundamental aspect of personal change that often goes unnoticed: the powerful role of identity in shaping our behaviors and resolutions. When we set a resolution, we often focus on the action we want to take. I want to lose weight, I want to quit smoking, or I want to read more. But at the heart of these goals lies a more profound question: who do we believe we are, and who do we want to become? This is the essence of the identity factor. Consider the story of Alex, who struggled with his weight for years. Each new year, he resolved to lose 20 pounds, envisioning himself as a fit and healthy person. But despite his best efforts, he would find himself back at square one by March. What Alex didn't realize was that his identity, how he viewed himself, was at odds with his goals. In his mind, Alex was still the big guy who loved food and comfort. He didn't see himself as a fit person, so when faced with choices, he unconsciously gravitated toward behaviors that aligned with his self-image. When friends invited him out for pizza, he thought, "I'm not a healthy person. I'm just being myself." This disconnect between his goals and identity created a powerful internal conflict. Psychologists refer to this as cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort experienced when our beliefs and actions are misaligned. Alex's resolutions felt like a burden, and each failure reinforced his belief that he would never be the fit person he aspired to be. Now, let's contrast Alex's experience with that of Maria, who also wanted to lose weight. Instead of focusing solely on the action of dieting, she began to shift her identity. She started telling herself, "I am a healthy person." This simple change in self-talk was profound. She began to seek out activities that aligned with her new identity, cooking healthy meals, exercising regularly, and even joining a fitness group. Maria's transformation illustrates a crucial principle. When we change our identity, our behaviors naturally follow. Instead of forcing herself to stick to a diet, she was simply living as her true self, a healthy person. This alignment made it easier for her to make choices that were consistent with her new identity. Think about your own resolutions. What identities are you currently holding on to that may be limiting your potential? Perhaps you see yourself as someone who isn't good with technology, which makes it hard to learn new skills. Or maybe you identify as not a morning person, which keeps you from waking up early to pursue your goals. By challenging these self-perceptions, you can open the door to new possibilities. Instead of saying, "I want to write a book," you might start thinking, "I am a writer." This subtle shift can motivate you to write regularly, explore your creativity, and embrace the identity of someone who expresses themselves through words. Identity change is not always easy, but it can be incredibly rewarding. It requires consistent reinforcement through small actions that align with your desired self-image. Each time you take a step that reflects your new identity, you strengthen that identity further. For instance, if you want to be seen as an active person, you might start by taking short walks during your lunch break. Each time you do this, you reinforce the belief that you are someone who values movement and health. Over time, these small actions accumulate, leading to significant changes in both your behavior and self-perception. As you drift deeper into relaxation, consider the identities you hold and how they shape your actions. What new identities might you embrace that align more closely with the person you aspire to be? While our identity shapes the core of who we believe ourselves to be and what actions feel authentic to us, we don't exist in isolation. Our environment, both physical and social, creates the context that either nurtures or challenges our evolving sense of self. Even the strongest identity shifts can falter when placed in environments designed to support our old patterns. Just as a seedling requires the right soil, water, and sunlight to flourish, our new identities need supportive surroundings to take root and thrive. Let's explore how intentionally designing your environment can create powerful tailwinds for change, making your new behaviors not just possible but often inevitable, and transforming what once required willpower into the path of least resistance. Part 4. The importance of environment in supporting change. As you settle deeper into relaxation, let's explore a vital yet often overlooked aspect of creating lasting change: your environment. The spaces we inhabit, the people we surround ourselves with, and the systems we create can significantly influence our behaviors and choices. Imagine for a moment that you're trying to eat healthier. You've committed to cooking more meals at home and reducing your intake of processed foods. Now, picture your kitchen. If it's stocked with fresh fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, you're more likely to whip up a nutritious meal. But if it's filled with sugary snacks and takeout menus, those choices can become temptations that derail your intentions. Let me share the story of Sarah, who wanted to cultivate a reading habit. Initially, her living room was cluttered with distractions: TV remotes, gaming consoles, and a pile of unfinished projects. Despite her desire to read more, she found herself gravitating toward the TV instead of picking up a book. One day, Sarah decided to create a dedicated reading nook. She cleared a small corner of her living room, added a comfortable chair, and stocked it with her favorite books. This simple change transformed her environment. Now, whenever she walked past her reading nook, it beckoned her to sit down and immerse herself in a story. Within weeks, Sarah found herself reading for pleasure regularly. The act of creating a space that supported her goal made it easier to engage in the behavior she desired. The environment became a gentle reminder of her intention, encouraging her to choose reading over distractions. This principle extends beyond physical spaces. Consider the people in your life. Research shows that we are profoundly influenced by our social circles. If you're surrounded by individuals who prioritize health and wellness, you're more likely to adopt similar habits. Conversely, if your friends frequently indulge in unhealthy eating or sedentary lifestyles, it can create challenges for your own goals. Take the example of Mark, who wanted to quit drinking alcohol. He realized that many of his social activities revolved around bars and parties, making it difficult to stick to his commitment. Instead of forcing himself to avoid these situations, Mark sought out new social circles that aligned with his goals. He joined a hiking group and started attending sober events. These changes in his environment and social interactions provided him with the support he needed to maintain his commitment. Now, let's think about your own environment. What aspects of your surroundings can you adjust to better support your goals? Here are a few strategies to consider. 1. Declutter your space. Remove items that distract you from your goals. If you want to write more, create a clean workspace free from clutter. If you're trying to eat healthier, consider removing junk food from your pantry. 2. Create visual reminders. Use sticky notes, vision boards, or motivational quotes in your environment to keep your goals at the forefront of your mind. These cues can serve as powerful nudges toward the behaviors you want to adopt. 3. Surround yourself with supportive people. Seek out friends, family, or communities that share your aspirations. Engage with individuals who inspire you and hold you accountable. Their support can make a significant difference in your journey. 4. Designate spaces for specific activities. Just as Sarah created her reading nook, consider designating areas in your home for specific activities. A cozy corner for meditation, a well-organized workspace for productivity, or a vibrant kitchen for cooking can help reinforce your intentions. As you reflect on these strategies, remember that small changes in your environment can lead to significant shifts in your behavior. Your surroundings can either hinder or support your journey toward lasting change, so choose wisely. As you continue to relax, take a moment to visualize your ideal environment. What does it look like? How does it feel to be surrounded by elements that support your goals? Allow this vision to settle in your mind, inspiring you to take actionable steps toward creating that space in your life. In our next section, we'll discuss the role of habits in sustaining change. But for now, simply embrace the understanding that your environment is a powerful ally in your journey. By intentionally shaping it, You can create a nurturing space that fosters growth, resilience, and the realization of your aspirations. Part 5. The power of habits in sustaining transformation. As our exploration continues, let's turn our attention to one of the most fundamental elements of lasting change: habits. These seemingly small, automatic behaviors form the infrastructure of our daily lives, often determining our outcomes more powerfully than our conscious decisions. Think about your morning routine. Perhaps you wake up, reach for your phone, brush your teeth, make coffee, or meditate. Whatever your sequence, much of it likely unfolds without deliberate thought. These automatic behaviors, habits, account for an estimated 40 to 50% of our daily actions, according to research from Duke University. Consider the story of James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, who transformed himself from a severely injured college student to a successful athlete and writer. After suffering a traumatic baseball bat accident in high school that required extensive brain surgery, Clear faced a long recovery. Rather than focusing on ambitious goals, he began implementing tiny habit changes, going to bed a few minutes earlier each night, making his bed every morning, lifting weights for just a few minutes daily. These small actions, consistently performed, compounded over time. Clear didn't transform overnight. No one does. Instead, these modest habits gradually rebuilt his confidence, health, and productivity, eventually leading to remarkable achievements that seemed impossible during his recovery. What made Clear's approach effective wasn't the impressiveness of any single action, but rather the consistency of his small behaviors. This illustrates a profound truth about lasting change. It's rarely about dramatic interventions and more often about modest adjustments maintained over time. Let's explore how habits actually form in our brains. Every habit follows a predictable pattern that researchers call the habit loop. First comes a cue or trigger, something that prompts the behavior. This might be a time of day, an emotional state, a specific location, or the presence of certain people. Next is the routine, the behavior itself, the action you take almost automatically once triggered. Finally comes the reward, the benefit you receive that reinforces the habit loop, teaching your brain this pattern is worth remembering and repeating. Understanding this loop gives us tremendous power to reshape our behaviors. For example, Maya wanted to develop a consistent meditation practice, but found herself constantly forgetting or putting it off. After learning about habit formation, she identified her morning coffee as a reliable daily cue. She decided that after pouring her coffee, she would sit for just 2 minutes of meditation before drinking it. By attaching her new desired behavior, meditation, to an existing habit, making coffee, she created what experts call habit stacking. The coffee became her cue, the brief meditation her routine, and the anticipated enjoyment of her coffee, along with the calm feeling from meditation, became her reward. What made Maya's approach successful wasn't starting with lengthy meditation sessions, but rather beginning with a duration so short it seemed almost too easy. This principle of starting small is essential for habit formation. When a new behavior feels manageable, even trivial, we're more likely to perform it consistently, which is far more important than intensity when establishing habits. Another powerful strategy involves modifying your environment to make good habits easier and unwanted habits more difficult. Alex wanted to reduce his social media use, but found himself automatically opening apps whenever he picked up his phone. Rather than relying on willpower alone, he removed social media apps from his home screen and enabled settings that created a 20-second delay before these apps would open. This small friction was enough to interrupt the automatic nature of his habit loop, giving his conscious mind time to intervene. Meanwhile, he placed a book he wanted to read on his coffee table and kept his phone charger in another room, making reading more accessible than scrolling. The beauty of working with habits instead of against them is that habits, once established, require minimal mental energy. Initially, Creating a new pattern demands attention and effort, but with consistency, these behaviors become increasingly automatic, freeing your mental resources for other pursuits. As you consider your own habits, here are some key principles to remember. 1. Start remarkably small. A 1-minute meditation or a single push-up is infinitely better than an ambitious plan you abandon. 2. Attach new behaviors to existing habits. Your current routines can serve as reliable triggers for behaviors you wish to adopt. 3. Design for consistency rather than intensity. A modest action performed daily will transform your life more powerfully than occasional heroic efforts. 4. Make desired behaviors obvious and easy. Keep your running shoes by the door, your journal on your pillow, or your water bottle within reach. 5. Create accountability systems. Whether through technology, commitment partners, or public declarations, external accountability significantly increases follow-through. Remember that habits form the foundation upon which meaningful change is built. The quality of our lives often reflects the quality of our habits. By intentionally designing these automatic behaviors, you're essentially programming your default actions, determining not just what you do occasionally when motivated, but who you become automatically. As you reflect on these principles, consider one small habit you might implement or modify. Remember, the goal isn't to transform everything at once, but to begin a process of incremental improvement that compounds over time. In our final section, we'll explore how to navigate the inevitable setbacks and challenges that arise on any journey of change. But for now, simply appreciate the power of small, consistent actions, how these quiet decisions, made and maintained day after day, ultimately shape the course of our lives more profoundly than our grandest ambitions or occasional bursts of motivation. Part 6. Embracing setbacks as stepping stones to growth. As we continue our journey together, let's address perhaps the most crucial aspect of lasting transformation: how we respond to inevitable setbacks. The path to meaningful change is rarely linear. It's a winding road with unexpected turns, occasional detours, and yes, moments when we seem to lose our way entirely. Consider the story of Michael Jordan, widely regarded as one of the greatest basketball players of all time. In his famous Nike commercial, he reflected, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times, I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed." What makes this perspective so powerful is not just Jordan's resilience, but his fundamental reframing of failure, not as evidence of inadequacy, but as an essential component of mastery. This mindset shift represents what psychologist Carol Dweck calls a growth mindset, the understanding that abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. When we view setbacks through this lens, they transform from discouraging obstacles into valuable feedback that guides our next steps. Consider Elena, who committed to a daily meditation practice. For the first 2 weeks, she maintained perfect consistency, but then life intervened. A family emergency, work deadlines, and disrupted routines. After missing several days, her inner critic began the familiar refrain, "See, you always quit. Why even bother starting again?" This critical inner voice represents what researchers call the what the hell effect, the tendency to abandon our goals entirely after a single lapse. We see this commonly in dieting, exercise routines, and other behavior change efforts. One missed workout becomes permission to skip the entire week. One indulgent meal becomes an excuse for a weekend of unhealthy choices. What made Elena's journey different was her response to this inevitable stumble. Rather than interpreting her lapse as a terminal failure, she viewed it as data, valuable information about the challenges in her environment and routines that needed addressing. Elena identified that mornings were particularly vulnerable during busy periods, so she shifted her meditation to evenings. She created a minimum viable practice of just 1 minute of mindfulness that she could complete even on her most chaotic days. Most importantly, she developed a specific plan for how she would respond to future lapses, what psychologists call an implementation intention. Her plan was simple but powerful. If I miss a day of meditation, then I will practice for just 1 minute the following day, no matter what. This approach removed the shame and deliberation that often follow a setback, replacing it with a clear, actionable path forward. The science behind this approach is compelling. Research from the University of Pennsylvania found that people who anticipated obstacles and planned specific responses were significantly more likely to maintain their habits long-term than those who relied solely on motivation or willpower. This principle applies across domains. James, an aspiring writer, struggled with consistency in his creative practice. After learning about implementation intentions, he created his own. If I miss a day of writing, then I will write for just 5 minutes the next day before checking email or social media. This simple plan acknowledged that perfect consistency was unrealistic while creating a low-threshold re-engagement strategy. By allowing himself to write for just 5 minutes, James could easily overcome the inertia that often accompanies a missed day, keeping his creative momentum alive. Both Elena and James illustrate how embracing setbacks as stepping stones can lead to growth and resilience. Instead of viewing setbacks as failures, they reframed their experiences as opportunities for learning and adaptation. This shift in mindset not only helped them maintain their practices, but also fostered a deeper understanding of their personal journeys. As you navigate your own path of change, remember that setbacks are not the end of the road, but rather integral parts of the journey. Embrace them, learn from them, and let them guide you toward greater resilience and growth. By adopting a growth mindset and implementing strategies to respond to challenges, you can transform setbacks into powerful catalysts for your ongoing journey of transformation. Now that we understand how to reframe setbacks as valuable learning opportunities rather than roadblocks, let's channel this growth mindset into creating your own personalized blueprint for change. While embracing setbacks builds resilience, developing a structured yet flexible process empowers you to navigate change with intention and purpose. Just as Elena and James crafted specific strategies to overcome their challenges, you too can design a change process uniquely suited to your goals, circumstances, and personal rhythms. By combining the resilience to weather inevitable setbacks with a thoughtful approach to transformation, you'll create not just temporary shifts, but lasting, meaningful change in your life. Let's explore how to build this framework together. Part 7. Creating your own successful change process. As you continue to relax and drift towards sleep, I'd like to guide you through thinking about how you might approach change in your own life. You don't need to actively do anything right now. Just let these ideas wash over you, and your mind will naturally retain what resonates. Step 1. Choose change that matters to you. The most sustainable changes are those aligned with your values, not external expectations. Rather than thinking, I should lose weight or I should save more, ask yourself, what changes would bring me genuine joy or peace? What would help me live in alignment with what I truly value? What change, if made, would make other positive changes easier? Sometimes the most powerful resolutions aren't the obvious ones. Perhaps what you really need isn't a strict diet, but more sleep. Maybe what would transform your life isn't a rigid budget, but a weekly nature walk to reduce stress. Listen to your deeper wisdom about what matters to you, not what you think you should do. Step 2. Start with one small change. We often try to transform too many things at once. Research shows that focusing on one small change at a time is much more effective. Choose something that feels manageable, even slightly too easy. Remember, you can always build on success, but if you start too big, you're likely to get discouraged and give up entirely. Ask yourself, what is the smallest version of this change that I could commit to consistently? What would be so easy I couldn't say no, even on my worst days? Step 3. Design your environment for success. Look at your physical surroundings and daily routines. How could you modify them to make your desired change almost automatic? If you want to drink more water, place a beautiful glass on your desk. If you want to reduce social media, put your phone in a drawer during certain hours. If you want to save money, set up automatic transfers on payday. Small environmental changes can have profound effects on your behavior without requiring constant willpower. Step 4. Build support systems. Consider who or what could support your change process. Is there a friend who might join you in this change? Is there a group, either in person or online, where this behavior is normal? Could you work with a therapist, coach, or mentor who specializes in this area? Remember that asking for support isn't weakness, it's wisdom. We're social beings, and connection can make the difference between temporary change and lasting transformation. Step 5. Plan for imperfection. Change isn't linear. There will be days when you don't meet your goals, when old habits resurface, or when life gets in the way. Plan for these moments. What specific obstacles might arise, and how will you handle them? What will you say to yourself after a slip to encourage getting back on track? How might you build in regular reset points to reevaluate and adjust? The goal isn't perfection, but resilience, the ability to continue despite setbacks. Step 6. Track and celebrate. Find a simple way to track your progress that feels good to you. This could be a note in your journal, a mark on a calendar, a photo documentation, a tracking app that you enjoy using. More importantly, celebrate your wins, no matter how small. Each step forward deserves acknowledgement. Celebration tells your brain, this is good, let's do more of this. Step 7. Evolve as you go. The most sustainable changes evolve over time. What works in the beginning might not work forever, and that's okay. Give yourself permission to adjust your approach as you learn what works for you. Expand or contract your goals based on life circumstances. Periodically reassess whether this change still aligns with your values. The path of change isn't about rigid adherence to a plan. It's about direction, learning, and growth. As you continue to relax, let me share some final thoughts about change that might offer comfort and perspective. Part 8. A gentler philosophy of change. In our achievement-oriented culture, we often approach personal change with the same intensity we bring to work projects or competitive sports. We set ambitious targets, create strict plans, and then judge ourselves harshly when we fall short. But what if we brought more kindness to the process of change? Truth 1. Change is cyclical, not linear. We often expect progress to look like a straight line upward. In reality, it looks more like a spiral. We revisit the same themes and challenges repeatedly, but hopefully from a slightly different perspective each time. Each time you attempt change, even if you don't fully succeed, you learn something valuable that will inform your next attempt. No effort is wasted. Truth 2. Your worth isn't tied to your habits. You are inherently worthy, regardless of whether you exercise daily, keep a perfect house, maintain an ideal weight, or achieve career success. Habits and behaviors are things you do, not who you are. They may express your values and affect your well-being, but they don't determine your worth as a human being. This perspective allows you to pursue change from a place of self-care rather than self-criticism. Truth 3. Small changes compound. We often underestimate the long-term impact of small, consistent actions. A 1% improvement might seem insignificant, but compounded over time, it leads to remarkable results. If you improve by just 1% each day, you'll be 37 times better at the end of a year. Conversely, if you decline by 1% each day, you'll decline nearly to zero. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. Small steps, taken regularly, can lead to profound transformation. Truth 4. Your environment shapes your behavior. We tend to attribute our behavior entirely to personal qualities like willpower, discipline, or motivation. But research shows that our environment, physical spaces, social circles, routines, and systems, has a much stronger influence on what we do. This isn't a weakness. It's human nature. By accepting this reality, you can stop blaming yourself for lack of discipline and start designing environments that naturally support the behaviors you want. Truth 5. The goal isn't perfection, but alignment. The ultimate aim of any resolution or habit change isn't to achieve some perfect state of being. It's to bring your daily life into greater alignment with what truly matters to you. Sometimes the smallest changes, a daily moment of genuine connection with a loved one, a brief pause to notice the beauty around you, a kind word to yourself when you're struggling, can create more alignment than grand, sweeping lifestyle overhauls. As you drift closer to sleep, I'd like to leave you with a simple visualization. Imagine yourself 1 year from now. But instead of picturing a completely transformed life, imagine something more realistic and sustainable, yourself living mostly as you do now, but with 1 or 2 meaningful changes that have become natural parts of your routine. Perhaps you're taking a moment each morning to breathe deeply and set an intention for the day. Perhaps you're enjoying a weekly nature walk that refreshes your spirit. Perhaps you're saving a small amount each month towards something meaningful. Perhaps you're connecting more authentically with a friend or family member. Whatever changes would bring your life more in line with what you truly value, imagine them integrated naturally into your days, not through force or struggle, but through gentle consistency and care. This vision, modest but meaningful, is within your reach. As you continue to relax and prepare for sleep, know that you already have everything you need to create positive change in your life. Not through harsh self-discipline or unrealistic expectations, but through understanding, kindness, and small, consistent actions aligned with what truly matters to you. The wisdom of behavior science, the experiences of others who have succeeded where they once failed, and your own inner knowing can guide you toward changes that last, not because they're dramatic, but because they're sustainable. So as the new year begins, or wherever you find yourself in your journey, may you approach change with gentleness and wisdom. May you trust the power of small steps. And may you remember that the most meaningful transformations often happen quietly, one tiny habit at a time. Sleep well, and when you wake, may you carry with you any insights that serve your highest good.